All right, guys, thank you so much for coming right back to us. Episode 149 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Hope you're remaining safe. You may be in a state that's starting to open things back up. So, again, continue to remain safe even as you do so. And remember, we got to phase this thing in. So if you're in a state that's starting to open back up, continue to be careful. Remember, social distancing, but not social disregard. We are all in this together, and we should not disregard ourselves at all. And we will get through this. If you're in a state that has not opened back up, continue to do and listen to the healthcare professionals. Of course, that's what I'm doing. I think that's what we all should be doing, all around the country, is listen to the experts, the true experts, not just the opinionated talking heads, but the true experts. Listen to them and the healthcare professionals, and then govern yourselves and your families accordingly. So hope this is reaching you in a safe place. And just remember that there's opportunity all around. So if you've been knocked down to your knees, or you're going through tough times, you've lost a job, maybe your health hasn't been what you like for it to be, maybe you're facing other challenges, just know, MYB community, that there are resources out there for you. Reach out to me, Ron, at themybpodcast.com. If I can be a resource. I'm working with a lot of the banks, trying to get the PPP stuff going, all the different resources that are out there from a financial standpoint for your business. So again, let me know if you need resources, and I will connect you. No problem. I'm excited about today's guest, who's joining me, who's in a very unique business, a unique space, particularly for this time. And she joins us even through her busy schedule. I'm so glad to have Cynthia Delaria with Raika Technologies here with me. Cynthia, how are you?
I am doing very well, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
I'm excited. Looks like we're starting to get some hearts and everybody coming in from some of our live audience. So that's cool. Thank you guys so much. And again, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your pods. So Cynthia, let's jump right in, because want to learn some more about you and about your company and the things that you all do to support the community. So tell us about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are.
So I run a couple of different software companies. I've been in the software world for over 25 years now. I actually longer than that, because I started writing code when I was about 8 years old. Just kind of had a love for it, knack for it. It resonated with me. And I started my first company at 15, doing website development for companies like small businesses, and sold that company when I was 19. Started my second company a few years later, doing early key encryption technology for online downloads, distribution of software online, that kind of stuff. Sold that company about 5 years after that. I started my third company about 6 years ago. So it was the first time I had business partners, and that company builds software in the airline industry. And so that has been a challenge during this whole time, with most airlines operating at 70% less capacity than normal. We sell directly to pilots to help them with bidding their schedules. And so when you have 70% less flights, it means 70% fewer pilots bidding and 70% less revenue. So that's been a challenge. It'll be interesting to see what happens with travel from that perspective. And then I also have Raika Technologies, which is my incubator, which you mentioned. I'm kind of a startup junkie. I love starting up. I love new ideas. I love how creative and innovative people are. And I just love working with founders. I absolutely love it. And so about 3 years ago, we started this current project, which is an incubator where we work with founders from all different kinds of industries, all different kinds of backgrounds, mostly people who don't have a technology background already, because this world can be very difficult to navigate. It's sometimes hard to understand what are you hearing, what's the truth, what should I really be spending? Software, custom software especially, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's my goal and my mission in life to eliminate the story of the person who says, I spent $250,000 on software and I've spent 4 or 5
Wow.
years of my life pursuing this thing and I have nothing to show for it. I think that's a story that's completely preventable. And my viewpoint is that entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of an economy. They are the innovators. They create new jobs. They create new industries. You've probably heard that I have a stepson who's about to start college in the fall.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've heard the same thing that I have, where they say kids who are going into college now will do jobs that don't exist at this
Yeah.
point. Like
Absolutely.
their careers will be in jobs and industries and in areas that do not exist right now. And I feel like part of my goal and my mission is to keep empowering entrepreneurs to learn the journey and enjoy the journey, and to get to a failure quickly and cheaply means that they're that much more likely to keep innovating. And when the right entrepreneurs are creating the right things at the right time, that's good for everybody.
Yes.
So that's kind of how we got to where we are, and kind of a little bit about like my mission in life, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Cynthia, because yeah, and you're exactly right with entrepreneurship and small business being the lifeblood of the economy, and even big business started as small business.
That's
I think,
exactly right.
right here in Memphis, FedEx, Federal Express was
Yep.
started by, a guy here who, had a, college project that, people laughed when he said he could get, a package, anywhere in the world in a day,
Yep.
and, at some point he had to go try it, had some
That's right.
failure. Look, here he is, and he's big business now. But
That's
there
right.
was a point
Microsoft
where
is big business now, but those guys started in a
a
garage.
garage, yeah,
Three little nerdy dudes in a garage and some computers.
yeah, exactly. And so, how did you get started coding at 8 years old, Cynthia? Yeah, now, I've got three girls. I've got a 10-year-old. I've got an 8-year-old who's almost 9 here in 2 weeks, and then I've got a 7-year-old that's almost 8. So I've got
Holy
people in
moly.
that age range, and I'm
Holy
thinking,
moly.
okay, how did you get? I mean, what prompted you to get into coding at that age?
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations, and I'm sorry. That's a lot of women running your house.
Yeah, it is. That's why I've got to be a business.
That's exactly right. I got to find something to do with the majority of my time.
Right.
So God bless you, friend. Um, how did I get started? I loved to read, and I always had a natural knack for math.
Sure.
Love math, was always in the advanced math classes, and I love to read. And my mom was taking a networking associate's program through one of the community colleges near our house when I was a kid. And one of those classes was a visual basic class. And so I had run out of library books, and her visual basic book was sitting there on the desk. And I was like, well, I'll read this, I guess. And I picked it up and kind of started going through it and working through the programs on the computer. I mean, it told you exactly what to do and exactly what to write and exactly how to open it up. And, it took me a couple of days and I got through the book, and it just was the coolest thing ever because I had like 3D graphics drawing themselves and then floating around the screen. It was just really cool, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this I totally understand. Like computers innately kind of made sense to me. And I was very, very fortunate to be put into an atmosphere where my mom exposed me to all of that stuff, or I was exposed to all of that stuff. And so I had the chance to learn that I liked it really early.
Sure.
I participate with some programs around Denver public schools here in Colorado, and there's an organization that's up in Boulder, Colorado. A lot of organizations that are bringing tech to young girls and younger kids, like elementary level, middle school level, and I love that because they're these kids come up with some really cool stuff, and a lot of them just have never had exposure to tech, so how would they know?
Right.
So I think just getting that exposure to be able to see, is this something that I resonate with? And there's lots of kids who go through the program and they're like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but this is not my thing. And I'm like, that's great that you know that,
Right.
because you didn't miss out on a thing. Now you can like check that one off and go on
Keep
to the
going.
next
Yeah.
thing and figure out your thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just about exposure and just about having the opportunity to try stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
in a low risk way, right? Like
Sure.
it's a lot more risky to try coding when you're in the middle of a career in your 40s and you're like, hey, this is super cool, because you're gonna probably have to start over a little bit, or you're gonna have to figure out a way so it's more risky, right? It's,
Right.
man, God bless kids, and if only we would have known
Yeah,
when we
that's
were
what I'm sitting here
kids.
thinking. It's like, man, I wish I had known that as much as I was into computers and video games coming up, and kind of like you shared, Cynthia. My mother put I've got I've got brothers and sisters, and put us in kind of computer keyboarding class early
Yeah.
on, which helped fuel that love and then that comfort level
Yep.
with technology that serves us well today. So you're exactly right. That exposure is so
Yeah.
critical. And
Yeah.
I love what you said too, and the positivity of, hey, if you find out it's not for you, that's okay. At
It
least you know,
is. That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So
That's
that goes
right.
a
Yeah.
long way.
The world needs other things. I
Yeah.
mean, technology is a big part of a lot of things, most things, but that doesn't mean you have to be a technologist to be in the world and be successful and be happy.
Yep, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, Cynthia, how has kind of technology and software evolved kind of over your career from the time you've got started? Obviously, you've started businesses, you've sold
Yep.
them, you've moved on in true entrepreneurship. So, walk us through and kind of unpack how it's changed over the years. Obviously, you look young, so I imagine you kind of came through the as the internet evolved, you kind of
Yep.
obviously came along with it. I don't know if
Yep.
you had the Tandy 1000 back in the day with the Oregon Trail and all that stuff like I did.
Oh man, yeah, I totally did. Thank you for that too. That's makes me feel good to say I look young. That makes me so
Yeah.
happy. Yeah, we played Oregon Trail when I was in elementary school and middle
Oh, okay.
school,
So you're
and
kind of along with me then. Okay.
yeah, totally. Yeah, what I would say has really evolved the most is it used to be that there were traditional software developers and then there were web developers, and those were two very distinct disciplines, and since the rise of SaaS, software as a service,
Sure.
since the changes in, the way that I sold in my first company, small businesses on having a website, because they were all like, well, what is this thing and why does it matter? And, Google wasn't even really a company then, right? Um, was I said, well, this is sort of like the phone book of the future. Like, this is where people are going to go to find you. And I sold a lot of business that way because it was taking an old um, concept, which was a phone book, and
Sure.
which everybody could understand, and sort of saying it's kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's gone way beyond what it originally was. I mean, now not only are we delivering information via the internet, but we're actually delivering products and services. We're actually delivering software and engagement and experience over the internet. It's not just downloading software that I install on my computer via the internet.
Right.
SaaS is here, and it's here to stay. Cloud is everywhere, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Um, and so I would say that that's probably the biggest evolution that I've seen in my career is the web transitioning from just a delivery mechanism for information to a delivery mechanism for video, audio, software, products and services. And then the disciplines that were traditionally kind of segregated, which is traditional software development, the way that you would think of it. I built a thing and I put it on my computer, versus web
Yeah.
software development. Those two things are almost analogous now. Um, Most people assume if you work in software development, you probably are working somewhere on the web, or you are dealing with some components that are talking over a server somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting journey. We're a long way from the Oregon Trail, and what's funny is I'm like, oh, I must be at that point in my adult life where companies are trying to relate to me and sell to me, because now, like, all the shows that I watch on Netflix make references to my childhood.
Yeah.
A lot of commercials are making references to things that are very nostalgic for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like in the prime of consumerism, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, you and I both. I get that
Yeah.
same thing that of course there's not a lot new under the sun, right? So
Of
people
course, of
go and remake
course.
things, and things become nostalgic now, and that
That's
sort of
right.
thing. And they've got kind of preset audiences of people like us, and so Yeah, it
That's
makes a lot of
exactly right.
sense. And so, as technology has evolved and
Mhm.
software has evolved, Cynthia, I'm curious as to the impact of software and technology, on the human being. For
Mm.
someone in banking, I remember early on being very cynical when bank leadership would come in and say things. Now, yeah, I'm managing a branch at this time, and I remember branch leadership saying, "Oh, no, 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 we're not putting in, ATMs and talking ATMs to take away from tellers. We want to,
Yeah,
and we were all sitting there like, yeah, right. All these tellers one day are going to be out of a job, right? Because you're
that's
looking to
right.
send everybody to the ATM. And it's funny, banks were very successful in doing that
Yeah,
for some time in my
yeah,
career. I was a banker for 17 years, Cynthia. And so, the banks were very good at kind of pushing clientele. Hey, use the ATM. You can cash your check. You can make deposits. Blah blah blah. And that's exactly what happened. They reduced
yeah,
teller head counts and that sort of thing.
that's
Um,
right.
my personal philosophy on technology has always been, and you can share with me if you agree or disagree. It's always been, Cynthia, that technology should enhance the human interaction. It
Yes,
should not take away from it.
that's
So that
exactly right.
utilizing software, utilizing technology should not be such that we outsource all of that to the technology, but it handles many
Yes,
of the mundane and routine calculations
yes,
and synthesizes data so
right.
that we can then make quick decisions and impactful decisions on behavior
That's right.
and spend more time into the human interaction as
That's
opposed to
exactly
less time.
right.
Yeah,
That's
what's
exactly
kind of
right.
your thoughts on that?
Very, very similar. It's interesting because where technology is useful is where you can automate rote or repetitive tasks,
Yeah,
because that's not where a human being does their best work.
yeah,
Where human beings do their best work is in creative thinking, strategic thinking, long term thinking, planning, innovation. Those aren't I mean, maybe someday a computer will be able to do some of that stuff, but it'll still be a computer that was created and designed by a human.
right.
So, anywhere that I look at automation taking rote repetitive tasks that take a human being away from creative thinking and innovation, that's where technology is useful. Look, I'm a techie. It took me a lot longer. My fiance is a doctor, and he's a very people person. It
Yeah.
took me a lot longer through this whole quarantine and shelter in place process to feel pent up, right?
Hmm.
Because you can stick me in a dark basement with a computer and I'm good for a while, right?
Right, right.
But there is no replacement. I don't care what kind of computer software. I don't care. I mean, even in Zoom, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
getting a lot of interaction in Zoom. It's different than being in the room with people, right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I think that we lean on technology sometimes far too much,
Yes.
trying to turn it into something that solves problems that it can't or can't solve or doesn't solve well. And we forget that the human element, the human being, the humanness of an interaction, of a transaction, is the thing that we're all trying to get more of.
Yeah.
It's like the whole purpose of creating software that automates a process is to free you up to be doing the things that you love to do, or the things that you're really good at, or be out in the world more, whatever that is. It's
Yeah.
not so that you can do different rote repetitive non-thinking tasks.
Right.
That would be
Exactly.
silly.
Right. Exactly.
um
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and kind of along those lines, Cynthia, as again, technology continues to evolve, um, how do people get involved with the incubator?
Mm,
Because I'm curious as to who comes to you. Are they
yeah.
finding you kind of online and saying, "Hey, listen, I don't have the tech background.
Mhm.
I want to launch this business." And could it be in virtually any industry, or are they more like a fintech where they're coming
Mhm.
in and saying, "You know what, I want to launch." This app or this
Yeah.
software, this technology. I don't have that background. I'm a
Yeah.
sales guy or a
Yeah.
saleswoman.
Right.
I
Right.
understand that, or I'm an accountant or whatever it is. So they're everything but in technology. So are they then outsourcing that to you for that development in the incubator, and you're more kind of teaching and coaching them along the way, or Yeah, how
Sometimes.
that works.
Yeah, so it really depends on the engagement. So most of my clients are small business owners in a non-tech space, and they
Okay,
have an idea for a technology solution, whether it's an app or a website or like a SaaS product or service or something like that, that either makes their business more efficient, brings them new revenue streams or new clients, or solves a problem in their industry, right? Like they
sure.
see this problem, all their competitors have it, and they're like, that would solve this problem, and I could build a business out of that. So they come to me because they're like, I understand the basics of business. I don't know about building a technology business, and I definitely don't understand what are the right questions I should be asking? What's the process of figuring out what the right thing to build is?
Sure.
And I want to make sure that I have somebody on my team or on my side who understands this piece of it because it's very expensive, right?
Yes.
So these are the typical kind of people who I work with. Now I work with them in a lot of different ways. So in some cases, a couple times a year, we will become what we call a tech co-founder, right? So we
Sure.
are building the technology in exchange for a portion of equity. We get real involved with the company. We're sort of in the weeds. A lot of times I'm acting as a CTO or a CIO, in some cases a CFO
Yeah.
for those companies, helping them get to market, get to revenue, get funding if that's what they need, and start on their growth and scaling path.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of the clients that I work with, they work with me to help them navigate all of those different areas and find the right people to put on their team. So it's more of like a coaching or consulting relationship. I've got one business here in Denver. They are in, they have a scientific lab, right? So they deal with water and water testing. They've never built technology around that. They're
Right.
they're familiar with technology because they use it in their lab process and everything else, but they've never built software. And so they
Right.
hired me as a fractional CTO into their company. And so I'm helping them dive into all the different areas where technology might help them solve problems in their existing business and create a new business out of an emerging market in their space. So I work with people. My goal is always to meet people where they are and to help them with the needs that they have to get them over whatever the hump they're facing right now is. And the reason that I look at it that way is because I am a huge fan of the concept of bootstrapping. I
Sure.
think the less money you take or the less of your company you have to give away in order to get to your goals, the better off you're going to be because you're going to be able to execute on your vision. I help people execute on their visions in a
Yeah.
technology space. I help them understand, okay, here's your goal. Here's where you are today. Here's the things that we need to do in between now and then. And by the way, I want to make sure that you spend as little time and as little money as possible understanding if there's real ROI to be had, or if there are pivots that you could make that would open up real ROI, because I don't want you to spend time and money that you're never going to see a return on.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that most people who are small business owners or who have had a business in the past, they understand the value of spending a little bit of time and money now to avoid the bigger, larger spend for a failure later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer in beta testing, which I think, like you
Yes.
say, a lot of
Yes. I'm a
business owners
huge
are.
fan of pre-selling.
Yes. Yeah.
Sell, like we used to call it vaporware, and I used to always have such a like negative connotation about that.
Yeah.
But here's the truth, Ron. If I'm out finding people who are interested enough to either buy it ahead of time or sign on a dotted line that they're willing to buy it when it's available,
Yeah.
that's worth way more than a bunch of software that I've already put money into and I'm like desperate for a sale.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
And you're behind the
pre-selling,
eight ball with that, like you say, financially, because you've invested
that's right.
time and resources and that sort of thing into
That's
something
exactly
where
right.
it hasn't been, at least proven that there's a dedicated market to it.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
but Cynthia, you talked about small business owners coming to you. If someone wasn't a small business owner, say they just
Yep.
had an idea and
Yeah.
they came across you guys and they say, you know what, Cynthia, I apologize. I do not have a business. I don't have an EIN number. I don't have
Yep.
anything. It's just
Yep.
me and an idea in my head.
Yep. Yep.
Could they talk to your team and at least
Of
begin
course.
kind of vetting out,
Yeah.
Hey, does this even make sense? I
Yep.
want to build the Millennium Falcon like in Star Wars, and I want to travel between planets in hyperspace. Does this even make sense now today? Or, whatever it is, right? So is that
Yeah,
something they can talk to your team about, and
absolutely.
at least walk away and say, hey, I know I've got something to further go back and develop, and then come back once I've
Yep.
got things a
Yep.
little bit more,
Yep.
kind of ready to go into the oven per se?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Something
absolutely.
people can
So
do?
we do have clients who have never owned a business before, but they have this idea, they have that fire, they have that passion. We become kind of a resource to say, okay, let's dig in as much as we can. And then let's help you find the right resources to get you to a place where now you're ready for us to come in and potentially be a tech co-founder or participate with you on a larger level.
Sure.
Um, so we frequently work with people who haven't ever run a business before, or who don't, a lot of people, and this can sound really weird, but every time we hit a recession, I get
Yeah.
excited.
Oh,
Okay.
of course. Yeah.
And I
No,
know that
I know
sounds
what you
really,
mean.
really weird, Ron, but go with me on this. So here's
I'm
what
with you.
happens in a recession. People who have all these wonderful ideas rolling around in their head for years and years and years, but they've always had the excuse of, well, my day job, my 9 to
Yes.
5, my kids, like whatever that thing is, and it all seems really real and really valid, right?
Right.
They just got intimately related to the fact that their steady 9 to 5, and I'm putting that in air quotes,
Sure.
is anything but steady or stable when something goes wrong.
Right.
So a lot of them are now realizing, wow, I'm really at the mercy of someone else in a way that affects my family, and it affects my lifestyle, or my happiness, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
This is the time when more people will become entrepreneurs, more people will innovate.
Sure.
And not only will that happen in the next 9 to 12 months, you're going to see an explosion of new businesses, which is so awesome.
Absolutely.
But here's what's interesting about those new businesses. More of them will be recession proof than businesses created at any other time in our economic cycle. Why is that? They're intimately facing recession related problems. So,
Absolutely.
what are they going to do? They're going to create solutions. They're going to innovate ideas. They're going to create businesses that are designed to solve the problems people face in a downturn.
Yeah.
Recession proof business right there.
Yep.
So I get
Absolutely.
excited, not because I want people to feel pain at all. I don't. I wish that we could. I would love to find a way in the future to spark that innovation and to encourage people to see the possibility even when they're really comfortable. That's just not how we are as humans, right? Sometimes it
Right.
takes getting outside of our comfort zone to push us into something new. But I get excited because I know what's about to like explode is people's creativity and their innovation and the way that they view the world is about to just like completely alter. And there's going to be so many great new businesses that grow and evolve and are innovated and created in the next, like I said, 9 to 12 months, maybe 2 years, that are going to be brilliant, that are going to speak right to the issues of the new normal. I'm putting that in quotes too because I think it's a term I hate,
Yeah, it's
but
an interesting term to say the least.
yeah, and to do it in a way where the next times, the next economic downturn, because economies are cyclical, we know that.
Sure.
We're not trying to pretend like this is the last thing we're ever going to face, ever. But the next time that happens, all of those people are going to have a little bit more security and a little bit more stability, and they're going to be at the source of their own, what do I do next? How do I navigate this? And they're not going to be relying on somebody else.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a win, and I get super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple things on that, because that's really rich there, Cynthia. If you go back just in our history, none of us were around for the Spanish flu, right? 100 years ago.
Right. I wasn't. I mean,
I
I know
wasn't
I
either.
look young,
Yeah,
but
see, you look young, but yeah,
I'm a
I
little
imagine you
younger than
weren't
that.
around for the Spanish flu. And neither was I, and probably, and of course, nobody listening to this podcast. But if you read about it, they didn't have a lot of the things that we have in place today. As many
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, that have been, and I've had people close to me that have been affected by COVID-19, and
Yeah, me
I've
too.
had fraternity brothers who have passed away, who are in great health and
I'm
things
so
like that.
sorry.
Um, But, if you think about that time, you read about it, they had kind of a setback on that second run, and like a
Yep.
third of, the world's population, ended up affected with this thing. It
Mm-hmm.
took a long time to get out. But what came out of that was, some of the advancements in modern medicine
That's
and how
right.
we deliver things to children and that sort of thing.
That's right.
And then you look at World War II.
Yep.
World War II, the huge effect that had on creating a middle class in
Yep.
this country came from, something that, was kind of clouded in a lot of negativity and
Yeah.
things like that. But the spending the government did to help innovate and
Yep.
spur that innovation,
Yep.
all the small businesses that were started,
Yep.
all the jobs that were created. And if you look throughout time, like you say, when we've had these cyclical cycles through our economy, they all create opportunity.
That's
Right.
right.
So I'm with you. Yes, it's sometimes it requires us to go through those pain points
Yes.
to um, recognize that, and there's nothing wrong, like you said, with working, a job.
Right.
But some part of your process you should have ownership of, because most of us
That's right.
would work in right to own or right to work states.
Yes.
So pandemic or not, at any
Yeah.
point someone can walk in and say, you know what, Ron, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Right. And now
That's
your whole
exactly right.
world's just been blown up. They don't have to have, there doesn't have to be a reason outside
Nope.
of violating a protected class.
That's
Right.
right.
And so as long as there's no legality or violation of protected class,
Yep.
anybody could get sent out the door at any time.
That's
And
right.
vice versa, you can do that to a company. And
That's
so
right.
you're right. The show Shark Tank was bred out of '08, right?
That's exactly right. It's a perfect
Where
example.
it created, it made Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary and those guys household names
That's
out
right.
of just letting people present their business.
Yep.
And so you're right. The positive side of it, and again, we're not discounting MYB, the fact that
No.
many have been impacted, and
Yeah.
definitely, I'm sure in speaking for Cynthia, our hearts go out to any of you that are
Oh yeah.
listening that have been impacted, that have lost a job, maybe your business has been shut down, things
Yep.
like that. But if you take the positivity piece of it, take a step back from the emotion of the pain and look at, here's where opportunity kind of resides, is when we have these type of situations. And if you can kind
That's
of,
right.
take your vision away from, the trees right in front of you,
Yeah.
and look across the whole forest and see, okay, where are pain points that people are having that they'll pay to resolve,
That's
and
right.
they'll tell others to pay to resolve.
That's exactly right.
um, and as you do that, and technology's always been at the forefront of that.
That's
Anytime
right.
we've had a downturn, it's been some sort of technology
Has gotten
comes
spurred
up.
forward.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
mean,
That's right.
we had communication issues coming out of 9/11. What happens? We get the iPhone, right? The smartphone becomes the
That's
thing
right.
where now you've got a computer in your pocket, you
Yep.
know. So you don't have to have the Tandy 1000 for Oregon Trail anymore. You can play it from your Apple Watch if you wanted to, you know.
So you have young kids.
Yeah.
This is funny. We're talking about the iPhone.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine's little boy who now I think he's 12, but he has never lived in a world without an iPhone.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to my friend, "Daddy, what were iPhones like when you were a kid?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for him, the world never has existed without an iPhone, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, Cynthia, my girls, and people with kids can probably attest to this. So my girls, when they were like 1 and 2 years old, they knew they couldn't even use the bathroom on their own, but they knew how to flip through and find whatever they wanted to watch on
Oh
YouTube.
yeah.
It was crazy. They
Oh
they
yeah.
couldn't read, they couldn't spell, they couldn't change themselves, they couldn't fix their own food, they couldn't do any of that. They're completely, at the mercy of, an adult. But here it is, if you hand them your phone, they can sit there, take their finger, and wipe through whatever they want to. I remember my daughter's like getting frustrated about notifications. Like, you're two. Like, what do you can't even read what the notification is. But when the notification pops up and gets in their way, they're like, well,
Like, get away.
get out of the way. What is that? But they knew how to move it away.
That's
And so
exactly
you're
right.
yeah, you're exactly right. When you talk about with the young kid, there is a generation now that doesn't know the world without internet and
Nope.
having it ready available.
Nope.
Like, now if the internet slows down for 5 seconds, my daughter's like, oh, it's so slow. I can't,
Yeah.
what's going on with this thing? Dad, this thing's, is messing up again.
And you're like,
And-
sweetheart, in my day, we
yeah,
had what we called baud. You have
right.
no idea how slow that is.
Right, or dial up and all that other stuff,
Dial up. I know,
AOL and
right?
all that. So yeah, it's different. And one of the things that I try to do, though, because you bring up a good point, is like we were talking about earlier with technology, is teaching young people, even though they've always had it, and so
Hmm.
their savviness with it, is different.
Yeah.
I can remember, for myself, I knew how to work our VCR very well because that was the technology that I
Right.
had. So
That's right.
my dad was trying to figure out, how did you figure out how to record, off of this stuff, and how did
That's
you
right.
do it?
That was always
How'd
the
you
thing.
figure
Like,
all
we
this
want to
out?
record this show. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's like I've got tapes of, he loves Star Trek, so I would have
Uh-huh.
tapes of the show. It's like, how did you do that? And so each generation pushes the envelope on that, Cynthia. And
Yep.
so, but I think teaching young people, like you say, that respect to technology and understanding the history of it.
That's
So
right.
I love when you say that. So I think when young people can understand that this hasn't always been, and so they can
Yeah.
appreciate, they can learn the steps on how
That's right.
technology existed before they were born.
Yeah, that's
Um,
exactly
as
right.
something that I think, we should all be, working towards, with,
Absolutely.
this new generation of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said something interesting, and I solving a problem, this is the thing that I try and like embed into every person's brain that I ever talk to. The best way to build, excuse me, the best way to build a company that will be successful, or a product that will be successful, is solving a real problem for real people
Mm,
that they resonate with. They
yeah,
resonate with the solution, right?
yeah.
And so the three questions that I always ask people to ask themselves when they're starting to like dig in, and they're like, "Oh, I had this idea for an app," and the grand visions of all of it, right? And now they're going to be billionaires and angry birds and all that, right? Uh, I'm
Right.
like, I bring them back down. I'm like, what is the problem you're solving?
Yeah.
What is it? Can you name it in a sentence?
Yes.
Who is the person you're solving it for? And how many of those are there in the world?
Oh yeah. Listen, Cynthia, bless you for that, because that's something that, and I love, not only do you say to define it, but define it concisely. Can you
That's right.
define it, without me having to, have gone to, medical school to
That's
understand what you're
exactly right.
saying, right? And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, I love that, being able to define, what the problem is. What's the
Yep.
problem you're solving? And I think that's tough for a lot of people who, again, that haven't been entrepreneurs or business owners. It's
Yep.
tough for them to overtly,
Right.
um, make those definitions and define what the problem is and the target audience, who's going to buy
Yep.
it, why will they
Yep.
buy it,
Yep.
why wouldn't they buy it?
That's right.
Having those honest conversations, I think, is tough for people. So I love that you're doing that as part of your incubator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
makes a lot of
So,
sense.
yeah,
So
it's good
for
stuff.
you, Cynthia,
Yes.
um, what drives you now? And I get to the importance of family and things like that. What motivates you, these
Hmm.
days, and how important is family for you?
My family is very important. So I am engaged to, like I said, a wonderful man. He's a
Awesome.
doctor. He's a surgeon. Cares a lot about people.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I have two really wonderful stepkids. My stepson he just turned 18 in February. He's off to college in the fall. My stepdaughter's finishing up her freshman year of high school.
Awesome.
Um, we have three huskies. I'm on the board of a
Okay.
husky rescue here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Huskies are a very misunderstood breed of dog. People love them because of their beautiful eyes and their, wolf-like appearance. But what they don't realize is how stubborn and independent and, just complete. They have a sense of humor that will drive the average human completely nuts.
Sure.
And so they're just a very special breed of dog, and I happen to be a husky on the inside, so I
Yeah.
relate. All of those things for me are my why. My why is more people innovating in my community means a better life for everyone in the community. It means
Yeah.
that my stepkids and their kids and my nieces and nephews all have the chance to do that when they're ready.
Yeah.
There's more room for innovation the more innovation there is. um, and I really believe that it doesn't have to be hard to do something great and to be successful. And I think especially when you're talking in the world of startups and entrepreneurship, there's a lot of conversations like you have to work hard, it has to be a slog, or it has to cost you a bunch of money, or it's really hard to raise money in order to get something off the ground. And I feel like, if it's hard, that's a point with my entrepreneurs when I say, let's take a step back. Because first of all, do you really love this enough to go the distance with it?
Right.
Because you do
Good
have to
point.
be, you are the one, like you do have to be the one to keep the vision and to keep getting up every day and saying, yep, it's still the thing, right? So if it's hard, is it really the right thing?
Hmm.
Also, if it's hard, are you really solving a real problem for real people and there's a real solution there? Or are you trying to kind of like, you had this spark of an idea and now you're like, it has to be, and you're not seeing the opportunities of pivots and you're not listening to your audience, right?
Yeah.
So the more that I make it simpler, the more that I make it fun, the more that I help you get to an answer that you can live with, even if that answer is this isn't the right thing, but I'm excited to figure out one that is because now I understand more about the process.
Yeah.
The more simple that is, the more innovation is going to happen. So my why, my everything that I do because I love watching people get to live their dream. Like
Yeah.
I love watching when somebody creates something and they're like, Cynthia, oh my gosh, like we're getting ready to get acquired or we're going IPO or whatever that thing is, and that excitement, like this is my vision realized in the world.
Yeah.
If I got to be part of that and I got to help nurture that and my wisdom and my experience, my background contributed to that success,
Yeah.
that's a win. It's
Absolutely.
that's my win.
Yeah. No doubt
So
about it. Yeah. No
yeah.
doubt about it. Um, Cynthia, what are take me back to your toughest day,
Mm,
your toughest day in business, particularly. And I think that all business owners and entrepreneurs have this day where things just haven't been going the way you'd like them to be, just whatever that is. I'll leave that up to everybody's imagination, and everybody that's listed, knows. And that day could end up being a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, it could be years.
I
But
know people who have had that for a decade.
yeah, oh, absolutely. I do too. Yep, I do too. So yeah, definitely. But sometimes there's those days where that it just seems like that rain cloud it's like the Peanuts character where the rain cloud just follows you wherever you goes, and it seems like it's just raining on you and storming on you. Take me back to that day. If you had it,
Mhm.
um, unpack it for us. What kind of was going on that you can share, and importantly, Cynthia, how did you get through it? Because I believe there's something innate with people that are successful, is that and that's why when I talk about being a champ and things like that,
Yep,
everybody can be a champion. Everybody can't be a deity. Everybody's not a superhero in that
that's
sense
right.
where you've got this superpower because you're an alien from another planet. But I think everybody can be a champion, right?
That's right.
Everybody,
That's
when you
right.
get knocked down, everybody has the capacity to get up and
That's
to keep
exactly right.
going. And there's something that kept you going, like
Yep.
other people that are successful. So what was that?
Yep. So I'll point to the most recent one, and to be perfectly transparent, it happens more than probably people would like to think,
Yeah.
where you come up against one of those days or one of those times or one of those situations where you're like, man, it would just you wake up in the morning, you go, it would just be easier to go find a job, get paid a lot more money, or maybe even
Sure.
less money, but it would still be easier, have a 9 to 5 and like not work like this, right?
Right.
The most recent experience I had, so we started our incubator about 3 years ago. And we learned a lot through the first year and a half about how to engage with other companies, how to engage with entrepreneurs. What did they really need from us? What was the value proposition that we were providing? This, at the end of last year, we had honed in that message really, really well. We were starting to get really, really great traction. And this January in 2020 was our best month ever. In fact, we made more in January than we had made in the previous year
Wow.
combined,
Wow.
because we honed in and we figured out the messaging and we were talking to exactly the people who needed us at exactly the time they needed us. And I sat down and I looked at it as I was doing the books in January, and I was like, wow, we have the right messaging. We have the perfect clients coming in the door, and the business model still doesn't support the business.
Wow.
Like, we still aren't, it's not enough to cover the expenses in order to deliver on that purpose.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh man, here I've been working on this thing for almost 3 years, and I have it right. There's no question it's right. And it doesn't work from a financial perspective. There's no way to ever make the money to cover the expenses, much less a profit.
Sure.
So I have a fundamental business model problem.
Yeah.
And it was a solid month all through February. And by the way, in February, blew January's numbers out of the water too. And it still
Wow.
wasn't enough. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so we had to take some very hard looks at what we were doing. We had to take serious stock of where were we trying to hold on to pieces of the business that didn't make sense.
Right.
And we had to do a major restructure in our business and pivot some areas that meant there were some people who they no longer had a job with us. Totally unrelated to COVID, by the way.
Sure.
It was just related to a pivot in the business meant that we no longer were focusing on certain areas that we used to spend a lot of time and money on. And so it didn't make sense to pay people anymore. It didn't make sense to, keep having those people. And those are not easy decisions to make,
Of
because these
course
are
not.
people who, a lot of them, I've worked with them for 20 years. And to sit across from them and say, I appreciate you being part of this journey and being part of this vision, and it no longer is in alignment with your skill set and what you have to contribute. That's painful.
Yeah.
And
It
I
is.
seriously considered, through that whole month process, and then, it took us another month after that to actually do the restructure and sort of figure out what was the right thing.
Yeah.
I seriously considered shutting it down
Wow.
and saying, because you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, did I invite people along on a journey and I set them up to fail? And
Mm.
that's a very
Yeah.
real concern of mine,
Absolutely.
in the face of something like this. And, the reality is they're adults. I'm pretty clear about what entrepreneurship means whenever anybody gets involved with something that I'm doing.
Sure.
Um, but I very seriously considered maybe we just need to shut it down. Maybe there isn't a way to fix it, or maybe fixing it doesn't honor the spirit of the people who started out with me, right?
Yeah.
What keeps you going? For me, it's knowing that the service that I provide and the value that I provide to my clients means that there are more people out there who are employing people with the kind of skills that I can't employ. It means
Mm.
that those people who got laid off, or who were let go because of decisions that I had to make in my business,
Yeah.
they might view entrepreneurship differently. Like, they might actually come back and say, well, actually, I've had this idea. Will you help me get it off the ground?
Right.
Right? The other thing is that even making difficult decisions like that, when they are right for your business and when you're making them for the right decision, for the right purpose,
Mm-hmm.
the other person involved on the other side of that usually also has some other purpose
Yeah.
out there. And it's easy. It's just like all these people who just got laid off, who now will start innovating and creating.
Right.
Their employer keeping them employed longer than they should have not only is a detriment to the employer's business, it's a detriment to letting somebody find their next thing that's going to be the thing where they thrive.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not just survive, thrive.
Yeah.
um, and so I feel like making that decision, whatever that one is that you're facing, getting up in the morning and saying, am I really doing the right thing? Like, it comes down to trusting, you know, the knowing in your heart, who am I in the world? Why am I making these decisions? And am I doing the right thing by myself? Am I doing the right thing by the people who I care about? If you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I've made these decisions and I've made them for the right reasons, then you need to question that.
Yeah.
But that's the place you have to get to. And that's the thing that gets me through, is being able to look myself in the mirror and be comfortable with the person on the other side.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
the passion that you have for it, and then the principles,
that's
again,
exactly right.
that you live by. And,
That's exactly right.
I appreciate you sharing that, Cynthia, and
Yeah.
that testimony, that heartfelt testimony. There are three things that I think we all, no matter how we look in the mirror, no matter what our ages are, no matter where we come from in the world, there are three things that we all have in common. We all
Yes.
want to do a little better for ourselves, a
Yep.
little better for our family, and a little
Yep.
better for our community.
That's right.
I think we all have that. Now, how
Yep.
we get there, again, we could disagree until the cows come home, and you see that, of course, all on news and TV. We can all disagree. It's kind of like if all of us are all buddies and we all say, "Hey, we want to go to say downtown Denver," and we're out somewhere. If you got 10 people, you may have 10 different ways of how to get there,
That's
right?
right.
Some people want to go this way, some people that way. It's all
Yep.
going to the same place. It's
That's
just we
exactly
all
right.
may disagree on how to get there. At the end of the day, though, we get there, and everybody's
Yep.
pathway could be different, and we could respect that. And so, definitely respect what you share, because that's a tough decision for any business owner, I think, that
Yes.
has any kind of heartfelt towards their people.
Yeah.
That's difficult, Cynthia, to make those type of choices when you have to impact someone's livelihood.
That's
But I
right.
love again that perspective of seeing the silver lining and the positive that can come from releasing somebody kind of
Yes.
out to where now they can explore their
Yep.
full horizon and not
Yep.
be limited to this job function. This day I got to be here at 8 o'clock. I'm here till 5. Here's what I do. And
That's right.
like you say, you just exist from day to day. And yeah, it takes most of us, I kind of call it, that there's a little prick in the side,
Yeah.
that makes you a little uncomfortable to at least get up and say,
That's right.
what's pricking me in the side, right?
That's right. That's
You know what I
right.
mean? I think a lot of times as human beings, we get comfortable. If we could just sit in the chair and it's
Yep.
just comfortable, it feels good, you can almost fall asleep.
Yep.
We'll sit in that chair, right? We
That's
will.
right.
And if someone says get up from the chair, it's like, well, why? I feel good,
That's right. That's right.
But when something starts kind of pricking you a little bit in the side,
That's
it's,
right.
it's enough of a pain point to make you turn and look and say, oh, you know what? I need to get up and do something
That's
else.
right. And we
Um,
touched on that a little bit earlier, where we were talking about, we, not that we want people to experience pain, but pain can be a really great motivator. That
Absolutely.
that uncomfortability can be a really great motivator. And it's one of the things that I tell every entrepreneur. I'm like, whether you've ever done it before or you never have, if you're a little bit uncomfortable, you're probably going the right direction.
Yes.
It's a really,
Definitely
really
great
good
point.
indicator of, okay, I got to step outside my comfort zone. Yep, that's exactly what it takes to create something new, or to bring something new to the world, or to push a boundary, or to go beyond the thing that has existed before. It is uncomfortable, and that's
Yeah.
probably a good thing.
Yep. No, it definitely is. And I think even for myself, a lot of my successes were bred from pain points.
Yeah.
I was in the real estate. I had, that, took a hit.
Yep.
And that from that pain point, I was able to do other things. I shared with you kind of off the air, and I've shared with MYB community about Entre Memphis and how
Yep.
that came about, and the joys that I had from that and starting that, and then the
Yep.
pain points that came from how I was managing it that resulted in its failure of it, not my failure, the
Right.
failure of that entity, and the
Right.
the lessons that came from that drive me now
That's right.
today. But many of us, I think, can point to a lot of those pain points. I mean, a lot of people are watching, the Michael Jordan documentary and seeing, how great of a basketball player he became, but also learning the story of his hardships and
That's
some of the
right.
tough things that he faced,
That's right.
during his life. None of us are immune to that, no matter,
Nope.
what our bank account looks like.
That's
Because like
exactly
I
right.
mentioned earlier about those three things, a fourth area is, when you strip away someone's stock portfolio and their bank
Yes.
account, we're all the same, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
there's not that much difference. I mean, my
Nope.
hand looks different from one side to the other,
Yep.
but
And so does mine.
Yeah. But if you stab me on either side of it, it's going to bleed.
Yep,
Right?
that's exactly
You know what I
right.
mean?
That's
I
exactly
feel
right.
pain on either side of it. It's the same. Right? It
Yep,
looks
yep,
different, but it's the same. And so
yep.
that's the analogy that I always give. And so, again, I appreciate you sharing that, Cynthia.
Yeah,
Um, Thank you so much for this. This has been
yeah,
really good. I love the nature of your business. I love what seems like the culture of your business. Um, of course, I'm gonna be reaching out to you because I have an idea on something that resides from my banking days that I'd like to run by your team,
great.
to get some insight and see if there's an opportunity, which I believe there is. But love to get another opinion and maybe some questions that me and a couple of my partners maybe haven't asked yet.
Sure.
I'd like to be able to do that. Um, but thank you so much for joining here on the show.
Yeah,
How can people get in touch with you, and how can people connect if
yep,
they have ideas, or they're a business owner and they just
yep.
need help from a technology standpoint? How can they connect and do business with you?
So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. Our website is raikatech.com, raikatech.com. We're also on Facebook, a bunch of different social media. We've got a couple YouTube channels. We actually have a podcast as well
Yes.
that deals with business issues called Incubate This. Um, so I'm all over the web. If you even just Google my name, just spell it the way it sounds, you'll find some stuff from the early 2000s. I've been a musician since I was very young, and I put out a couple of albums.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you trace that down,
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
find me that way as well. So it's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
pretty
Well,
easy
that's
to
good to
find
know.
me.
Yeah, I'd like to check out some of your music there. No
Yep.
doubt about it. Yeah, and
So
NYB community, make sure you check all those things out. What else could you be doing? You're socially distant. You're quarantining, right? So you
that's
need
right.
something to do. You've watched everything on Netflix. You watched everything on. You watched all the Star Wars movies yesterday. You need something else to do. Here you go.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
Cynthia Delaria joined us today. Um, in the show notes, MYB will be the links that you could connect. So check your show notes here for this episode, and you'll be able to connect directly with Cynthia and her team. And so make sure that you do that. Um, Cynthia, again, thank you so much. I know you're busy. There's a lot going on. Best wishes to you and your family. Remain safe. Thank you for what you and your business do in the community, kind of there locally and then beyond.
Yeah.
And I look forward to connecting here in the future.
Thank you so much, Ron. This is a great conversation. I really appreciate you having me on today. And I
All right.
love your heart. I love everything that you're doing. This is a really, really great thing that you're doing. I love it.
Yep.
So
Excellent.
thank you
Thank you
for
so
that.
much for those kind words, Cynthia. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And we'll have to have you back. So maybe
Yeah.
once we get past all the COVID-19 and that sort of thing, we can come back and we can talk about all the innovating that now people are
Yeah.
doing,
That would be fun.
And
I'm
I'd
going to
love to
love
hear
that.
about, maybe some things that you come across or maybe trends that you see,
Yeah. That'd
in
be
kind of the
great.
tech space as we kind of move along through this process. But
That'd
again,
be
thank you
great.
so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks, Cynthia. All right. So that was Cynthia Delaria with Raika Technologies. Make sure that you check the show notes, MYB. Definitely do that. That's Raika Tech, RAIKATECH.com is where you need to go. You can connect, get connected with their podcast, get connected with their whole team. So if you have an idea, this is a great resource for you. If you got an idea that relates to tech, if you got a business and you're looking to add technology, you need technology support for an area of your business that you're looking to launch that involves technology, make sure that you reach out to Cynthia Delaria and her team. So thank y'all so much. This is episode number 149 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Of course, we're brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. Make sure you check us out, themybpodcast.com. 5 star on Apple Podcasts helps us expand our audience and continue to reach with great content, and look forward to many more episodes with many great guests like Cynthia here coming forward. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast.